I'm an artist. I'm making a lot of money through my art. People are valuing what I'm putting out there. And I was just like, this marriage, like, because at some point I was spending like 16 hours in the studio, right? And he was getting jealous and he was like, why are you there all the time? And I'm like, this thing really matters to me. And when I chose to go down this path instead of trying to fix it with this person that I really love, like, I'm like, my love for art and making things is greater than this.
Wow.
And so I guess that's a really difficult thing that I had to come to terms with.
Yeah.
And that was in some ways for me like choosing to be an artist.
Wow.
Like, and that's like regardless of what anyone else thinks.
No, and that's a lot of pressure to put on an art practice to begin with, right?
Right. Yeah. Especially for someone who hasn't even graduated yet.
Yeah. And I would also say that it's not the first time art ruined a relationship.
Yeah.
You're part of a long tradition, young lady. Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Clarisse Abelarde. So, okay, let's start there. I have a lot of stuff that I want to ask you about because you are kind of grinding pretty hard. You know, every time I see your Instagram, you're doing something new, you're traveling. Weren't you at Basel this year?
I went to Basel this year.
Okay.
I went last year too.
Well, let's start there because, and then we'll get into your roots and your origins. Sure. What did you think? That's my city. So
Miami?
Yeah. So a Cuban from there. So
nice.
Yeah. There's a history there.
Yeah. I mean, I ate so much Cuban food and I don't think I can have, Cubanos anywhere else besides Miami. Like, it's just like top tier Cubano.
You know what we call them?
What is it?
Medianoches, which is midnights.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no one in Miami calls them Cubanos.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But that is like it's our sandwich, so it makes sense. Yeah. So what did you think? How was the experience? Who were you showing with, or were you?
I wasn't showing with anyone.
You were working?
I wasn't working, and I think that's why my experience has always been just like amazing because I'm just like having fun and like looking at art and kind of like experiencing it all. A lot of my friends were working and they were just miserable because it's like all day they're like at the booths talking to people, and then by the end of it they're like going out, and then like the next day it's like an early morning again. Like it's just like an intense like entire week for a lot of people. But I mean, like, even though I wasn't working, like I still had that same energy just because I was around all of that as well. Like going to like 3 art fairs in a day, and then going to another show, and then going to watch people paint murals, and then going out to socialize and like drinking and stuff. The fairs, Art Basel specifically, feels kind of like a Walmart of artwork.
Well
like
said.
It's just very much like your most showy, like flashy art, just to like get you to look at it really fast, because it's like like you can't just like sit there for hours in front of an artwork. Like there's just so much to see. And so I think
it's all crammed together,
right? But like I think that also talks about specifically the culture in Miami, where like people are very much like flashy and look at what I have, and like right. I feel like that's kind of like the vibe in Miami. Like all these like rich posers are like trying to show off like sequins and like shiny things.
Not all those people there during Basel are Miami people, but that is what Miami likes to cultivate, that kind of people. You know, like we've always been a very touristy. We were just talking about Vegas, and there's a lot of. I was just in Vegas. I missed the fires because I was out there, and it is very much. Listening to people talk about their childhood there. I went to a book reading. Brent Holmes is the one who showed me around. He's been on the show. I forget what it's the Las Vegas art scene, but yeah, like I would say that whatever you picture about Vegas with that gambling side, it's like that, but without the gambling, but the drugs are there, and like the party and when you were describing people's work routine at the fairs, like it really is very similar to like people used to go to Miami to work at restaurants, sleep 3 hours a night, and then just do coke to stay up the rest of the time. Like that was the the people that were not local Miami people would go to South Beach and live like that, you know? And it was like, and then you would just meet them for a while, and then they would just their lives would fall apart because they're doing a lot of coke, and then they would just bounce.
Right.
But so it sounds like you got a pretty, like those people working the things got a very, very Miami experience.
Right. But I also feel like for me to say that Miami feels surface is kind of crazy, just because LA is kind of like that too, and that's like something that people are notorious for in LA, and like the fact that I go to Miami and I'm like, this is so surface level, it's just like,
but I wouldn't call you or Jacqueline Valenzuela and all those people, you know, like there is that superficial level that sits, that shiny, gloomy thing, but then underneath in Miami in particular, I hear it's a little bit different. I hear it's a lot more working class, honest, like, you know, Latino families that have been here for generations and stuff. Whereas in Miami, it's all Florida man underneath the surface. Right. And that's where it gets deep.
Yeah, because it's like in LA, I think the dream is alive, right? Like people come here and they make something of themselves and try to like do this thing, you know, and that's like, that's a striving. That's not, it doesn't, I don't feel that in Miami.
No, Miami has that Las Vegas thing, which was similarly, I keep equating the two because I'm just like, oh my God, I talk to people about their childhood there. I'm like, oh yeah. Like it's a small town and you kind of have to leave it, and you resent the people who leave it. But at a certain point, like I did, I was like, fuck these people for leaving. Who wants to go to New York? Who wants to go to LA? And then look at me now.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you hit a ceiling, you know, in terms of what you can do. Whereas like a city that attracts that many people like LA and New York is like, it's going to have more things because people are going there for, especially like cultural stuff, you know?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite part? Did you like the beach?
I loved it. Yeah, it was nice. I went to the beach maybe once.
Oh, really?
But like I was mostly there like just to support friends and galleries I know from LA, and just to kind of, you know, network and meet more people. And
you grind pretty hard. We'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
Let's start with, as I always do on the show, with your background. Were you born in the US?
I'm an immigrant. So
okay.
I moved here when I was 14 in 2009.
2009?
Yeah.
Did you have an American accent in I'm assuming you came from the Philippines.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
14. Wow, that's pretty late to assimilate that hard though. I mean, you sound like you're from California.
I grew up watching like the Disney Channel.
Disney Channel did it? Wow, that's the first I've ever heard that.
and yeah, like cooking shows and stuff. Like I had cable growing up, and I don't know, I came from like a privileged like upbringing, I guess, in a sense. I feel like when you're coming from a third world country, coming here, you would need a lot of resources to be able to support that move. And so, yeah, I grew up like learning all of these things, and I kind of knew I was going to end up here at some point. But no, I didn't have this accent.
No.
Like, I feel like I just like was trying really hard to blend in.
Oh, you just
I shed it all. I mean, I still speak Tagalog like,
really
fluently. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I had a British accent when I moved to the US, and I lost it very fast. So I can relate to that. I went to a British school in Rome, and then it was not cool.
Oh man.
No woman was like, "Oh, that's sexy." They wanted bros. So I started saying bro a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So Philippines is the only place in Asia that I've been to. I went to Manila and Boracay.
Oh, nice.
I loved them both. I don't know that I could deal with the traffic.
Right.
Because it's like 4 hours of traffic to just drive very small. It's
like 4 hours for like 5 miles.
Yeah, no, it's the infrastructure issues there are incredible. Yeah. I also went and I saw the old part of Manila. Which was like the way that it was described to me by this guy who's like a tour guide, but he's also kind of a performance artist. He's famous in this. So he has a shaved head, and he basically described the Philippines and Manila in particular as like the Pearl of the Orient, which is what it used to be called. I even stayed I stayed near a place that was called the Pearl of the Orient, and it was like described to me as this Art Deco city that had a lot of colonial, like Spanish colonialism, you know, a lot of that kind of architecture, but a lot of it was also very thatched roof, kind of very, very easy to burn down. And we firebombed the shit out of them. America did.
Yes.
Which is kind of sad because what's left of that is gone. And so, but it was like an Art Deco city. It was the bridge between the East and the West. And it was this like really thriving point, a place in culturally, and it just got completely destroyed. I think Douglas MacArthur made promises that he didn't keep to the Philippines. I mean, I guess, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Manila, but I have been to Boracay too. I feel like what's interesting in those areas is like the wealth disparity. Yeah. Like especially in Boracay where you have like all these like nice, huge resorts. And then just right outside, it's like a kid wearing no slippers, just like walking around, you know? It's it's really rough to like enjoy yourself in that moment if you're like just vacationing.
No,
like,
it does like, weigh on you.
But also it's interesting that you brought up the American
I always talk imperialism. It gets boring at a.
No, it's interesting because it's like the amount of damage that the U.S. has done on the Philippines, but Filipinos still worship the United States, and it's like we're very much like indoctrinated in a lot of ways where we were trained to move here and become nurses or like work for the U.S. in some way, kind of deal. Like they like want to colonize but like not really, but like want some kind of like reciprocation thing. But yeah, it's really interesting how the culture, like all of the billboards and advertisements in the Philippines, it's all like white people.
I know that shit was a fucking trip.
And so we all just kind of hate ourselves over there.
It's really, really dark. I'm not one to speak on it, but there was definitely I definitely saw skin whitening creams and things like that. Like
skin bleaching.
Skin bleaching is big there. But yeah, I did notice that the people in the billboards don't look much like the people in the city. You know, which was very, very shocking. It's almost like they look more Japanese in terms of skin fairness. You know, but they have a huge reputation for being very kind and very, very friendly. And I definitely found that, and very fucking patient. I stood, you know, in terms of infrastructure, again, not to harp on this point, but I lost my fucking mind waiting in a line for taxi cabs, where we were just like waiting for 2 hours, and my dad had gotten used to it. He was living there for a while. And I just looked at him and I was like, I can't fucking do this. Like I talk about Americanized expectations. Because in Rome and in Italy, when I was a kid, they had similar things, like Sundays, everything was shut down. And I miss that kind of like where everything just stops. And in Spain, they have La Siesta, you know, but like, I've just fully been Americanized to expect things right now. Right.
And I think like the reason why, like you said, that Filipinos are so patient and like are so happy and stuff, I think they realize that the fact that this is all we have, like what's going on right now, like we're sitting in traffic and like we can just make this better, right? We can just like have a good time sitting in traffic or something like that. So like that also comes in with like ingenuity and like making things out of nothing.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think that when I was there, telecenters, like the big booming industry was telecenters, like the nice part of town that kind of looked a little bit more westernized, where it was like really not in a good way, like kind of like looks a little bit more like downtown LA, you know, the financial sector and stuff. But the people that were living in those areas were like, one of the advantages is that telecenters in like India and whatnot is that Filipinos don't have as thick accents as are have a little bit more of an Americanized accent. So that's why their telecenters are in more demand, right? Because like people aren't like they can fall into the illusion that they're speaking to someone in America.
Yeah, we're taught English. I mean, like the fact that what we were talking about earlier with the United States coming in and like trying to get us to work like here, like it's all part of it.
They've been trying to get you guys to work over here. I didn't realize. I thought it was just like an ambition thing. I didn't realize that you guys were being courted.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah, like they support like us like moving here and like trying to have more jobs for us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think like that's why like the way that the United States came in, they like are trying to indoctrinate us there. Like
Wow.
we're being taught English at a young age there. Like the public schools, like English is part of the curriculum and all of that. And I mean, we're not rejecting it. We're just like, okay. Like,
well, I mean, opportunity is opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And especially if they're not doing anything to help the country directly.
Mm-hmm.
What I also noticed a lot of, and we can keep going back to the Philippines because I'm fascinated. I mean, I am from Miami and I'm a snob about beaches, and the only beaches that I've seen that are more impressive are the ones in Boracay. Like that thin sand.
That's funny because like Boracay isn't even the best one.
I know,
There's like 7,000 islands in the Philippines. There's some that are just like pure like powder white sand, and like some that are black or pink, or like just like all these different islands that you can explore there. It's really beautiful, and it's it's just unfortunate that, I don't know, a lot of atrocities has happened to it.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of sad, but okay. And then the other thing that stands out like a sore thumb, I was just talking to this week's episode that's out is Hiroshi Clark, and he was talking about like the stereotype. I think when an American marries someone in Asia, it tends to be like, oh, your dad was a GI, but he wasn't, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that is very present as an American going over to, there's like corporate franchises that are like GI Burger and shit like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like there's this like imagine if McDonald's was military themed, you know, and that to me is mind blowing in terms of like cultural lineage. And that is to say that you're basically Latino anyway.
Yeah. They call us sea Mexicans.
I've not heard that. I will not repeat it, but I'm glad you shared that with me. It fits. We're Caribbean Mexicans, I guess. You know, I mean, that is like the stereotype. Like growing up, that was the go-to insult was to call you something that you weren't. So, so that tickles me. Okay, well then, when did you start? Like, you are career-minded. You are like working very hard. I really liked how you introduced yourself to me. You invited me to a show, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll keep an eye on this person. So you have good graces. Other people just straight up are like, I want to be on the show. Whereas like you invited me to your show. I think it speaks to your professionalism, your social graces are pretty good. And I can see that as I see you interacting with people. You were just somewhere really cold, prepping canvases for people. So before we get into what you're doing now, when did the art bug catch you? When did you realize, like, because for me, you know, I always joke about how it's a burden to decide that you're an artist, right? And that there's truth to that, but you seem empowered by it in some ways. Not every artist does. So when did you start to get an inkling that, like, you know what, I like painting, and I like your sketching. You're constantly drawing, you're constantly sketching.
Thank you.
You're constantly doing non-safe for work stuff, which is fun. I'm like, ooh, it's naughty. So when was it? Were you still in the Philippines? Were you still 14?
I mean, like, I grew up, when I was talking about my upbringing, and I said that I was like, you know, like grew up pretty well off and stuff. I have a pretty big family, but they weren't really present. My mom came here when I was really young, when I was like 4, and she was like giving us money from like the work that she was like receiving and stuff, kind of supporting us back home.
So the sea Mexican thing checks out.
Right.
In Italy, it would have been Senegalese, or you know, like it's Western versus everybody else. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's all good. But and then like all of my older siblings were in college, so I was pretty much like to myself.
How many in your family?
One
of how many?
I'm 1 out of 5.
5. Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. I'm 1 out of 4. So
oh wow.
I know the struggle, but one more is a lot.
Yeah, but typically like we have a big family, it's like a really like fun, energizing thing. And
not in mine either.
You're always around. But I was just alone a lot of the time, and I found solace in like books and puzzles and like drawing, just like keeping myself busy. Like my imagination was like everything I had. And so I feel like in some ways I was always some kind of thinker, some kind of like deep minded person. And I mean, like, you know, as I came here, the immigrant like pressure was like weighing down on me, and like all of my parents and my siblings were all like in the scientific math field, and I was pretty good at that too, so I was just like, well, maybe I could pursue that too. So I was like going.
You were thinking nursing?
I was doing engineering.
Engineering, okay.
Yeah, I was in environmental.
I'm sorry for stereotyping you.
No, it's all good.
That was like obvious.
No, it's all good. But yeah, I was doing environmental engineering. I was in the labs. I was writing scientific journals and things like that. And I went to college thinking, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do like some kind of science thing. 2 years later, I dropped out. I can't do it. And then when I dropped out, I went into accounting. So I was doing accounting for a while, and that was so medial and so boring. It was just like typing in spreadsheets, like numbers all day, and I'm just like what am I doing? So I'd be like typing and like drawing at the same time.
Oh, okay. and another one of these, the little secret drawing practice,
or like journaling while I'm typing stuff, because it was just so boring. I just like couldn't handle it. And I would like talk to some of the people that work there, and I'm like, so like, why are you an accountant? And they're like, I like numbers. And I'm like, I'm in the wrong field. This is not. And then so I started taking classes at LACC. And
LACC, what's that?
Los Angeles Community College.
Okay.
And then a lot of the professors were like you have something here. They were really hard on me. Like I would come in sometimes like 5 minutes late with like a coffee in hand, and they would like just give me like the worst like.
When did you graduate?
From my bachelor's?
Yeah.
2022 in December.
2022. Okay, wow. Because everybody that I've been talking to recently is like, they're not hard on students anymore. So
exactly. And especially if it's like a community college. People don't care. Like, you're like, who cares? But it's like, they were super hard on me because I think they saw something in me, and I took it that way too. I wasn't like all like pissy. I was upset, but I was just like, well, maybe they're doing this for a reason, you know. And so I think in a lot of ways they believed in me, and since then I just like snowballed into like, okay, I'm gonna go to get my bachelor's in arts. And
where'd you get the bachelor's?
In drawing and painting at Cal State Long Beach. And you're doing your MFA now, or you've done it? I was gonna apply this year, but I was just like, maybe it's not the right time. Like I feel like I need to develop a little bit more.
Life experience helps the artwork. By the end of, like, if I look back at my work in undergrad, I was like, I wasn't ready, you know. Like I didn't really have anything to say.
But is anyone ever really ready? Like I don't think there's an actual perfect time to do things. I think you just do it and then do the best you can with what you.
I think what I mean more is that I didn't have enough life experience to really have anything to say about life. You know, I think that like basically like the stuff that I was making is kind of, it's not cringe to me. I see where it fits but it was like I was still pretty much just learning about conceptual art, you know, and like, and, you know, the ideas of postmodernism and all of that. So like,
but everyone starts somewhere. Like,
no, I definitely, but I think that like, I think that after school, I kind of was burnt out from the process of thinking and setting parameters and trying to be like a real artist that does, instead of like, just like, letting all of that shit go. I think that some people go to grad school, they have a great time. I got beat up by my teachers, by women teachers that were very, very like, had personal issues against me and had personal issues with people that I had studied under. So that it became about their rivalry and in these weird things. So like in that sense, I just wasn't prepared, you know, to like really delve in and make like I think all my good work started after college, but even then it started 4 years after, because I was like left sort of feeling hollow, you know, and like and almost like too analytical about everything I did, you know, too much like, oh well, all the things that I have to do that I learned in school need to be applied to this specific piece, and then it was like crippling. Does that make sense?
Right.
You know, but anyway, I mean, I'm not going to discourage anyone from going to grad school, but
I think it could be good.
Yeah.
But it does, like, they try to break you down so you can build yourself up. And I think there's moments in someone's art career where you just learn things.
Yeah.
And then you take some time to process the things you learned and then use it.
And
like, you don't even use all of it because you have to shed a few things and find the things that actually matter to you and what would actually make sense for your practice, right? So it's like, I think you go to college just to like learn all the things.
Yeah.
And then decide whether it's for you or not.
And I don't regret learning all of those things. It just took me a while to, like you said, to process them. But at the same token, I think that you're in a position where you're hustling enough where you might not ever need to go to grad school, right? Like, I think that a lot of people go to grad school, and this is why it'll be more powerful when you do. A lot of people go to grad school because they don't know what to do next, you know, or they're like, well, I guess this is what's prescribed. Whereas you're going to Basel, you're art assisting and stuff. It also seems like, I've said this before, Cal State is a pretty good program for getting people, like everybody that I know that went to Cal State Long Beach is grinding real hard, right? Like we got Josh at Yale, you got John, I forget his last name, but he goes by Baby Mueller.
He's at USC now.
He's at USC. You got Jacqueline Valenzuela, and then Tita, who's like just destroying everybody in this scene, right? Like, so I think that, you know, definitely where you go to school matters, but I also think that like you've really learned a lot of the things that they don't teach in school. Where did you pick that up?
I think like Cal State Long Beach is really good at giving you the foundations of things. And I think that's really important because like if you don't have a strong foundation, you're just going to collapse, right?
Yeah. That's a British baking show reference.
But also like, I feel like what you were talking about with the linear like path, people do the grad school thing so they could teach or like have something to fall back on and things. For me personally, I like when I talked about like that I loved reading books as a kid, I think I was always this like seeker of knowledge in some ways. And I think going into school, because I went during the pandemic, so it was just all
you were Zoom the whole time?
I was Zoom.
Oh,
well, not the entire time, like for 1 year.
Okay.
I was Zoom at Cal State Long Beach.
Senior year or graduating year, or the second year, I guess is how you say that in
the year before I graduated.
Year before you graduated.
Yeah.
So then you did get back into the classroom.
I went to school the next year.
Okay.
And then that time I was just like, I missed out on all of these facilities during COVID. I want to take advantage of it as much as I can because I paid for all of them before. And I just like sat out. I was like at home, like painting these like big paintings no one ever got to see.
Yeah.
And
what scale? Like how big are you getting?
Like 6 foot, like 6 by 4.
Which you are not 6 foot.
No, I'm far from that.
That's something I like. That I like the idea of someone painting something bigger than themselves. I don't know why that tickles me.
It's cute. It's fun. Like yeah. But it was just sad that no one ever got to see them. Right? It's it was COVID. And we were looking at it through a screen, critiquing it, and I'm just like, that's not fair.
Yeah. One of the things they teach you is that you can't really get a sense of a painting from looking at it in a book. So Zoom is like even crazier.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that second year, I was just like taking full advantage of the facilities, the studio, the stuff I'm learning. But I was also just like looking out into the world of the people that have actually turned this into a life, like being an artist. And I heard a lot of people talking about like the academic world saying that, you know, these people that are teaching art, they're teaching you how to make art, but not how to exist in the world as an artist. Because like in some ways they're falling back on the money they're earning as a professor and not having that pressure of selling their work. Although like I know some curriculums urge professors to have a professional career outside of being a professor, but I just don't think that's the same as like just actually being an artist. It's really difficult. No, and there's only a few people that would actually make it, and I think just being real about what that means, right? It's like you have to be willing to do a lot of things that most people aren't willing to do.
Like what?
Like work really hard, like be in the studio every day, like for hours on end, and continuing to develop your practice as much as you can. I think it's so easy to find reasons to not do it, right? It's like, well, I'm tired. I want to watch TV, or like I need
on the most immediate sense, like most of the time, no one cares, except you. And in fact, people will try to encroach on that time. And be like, yeah, why can't you do it tomorrow?
Why can't we hang out?
Yeah.
And I'm like, in the studio. I need to paint. Like, so I think prioritizing that is really important. And just like doing it when it's hard, doing it when you're sad, doing it when you like all those factors. There's just like all these factors in life that will just like pressure you to not do it. You know, and I think just continuing on. And
so you don't play any video games?
I used to.
You cut them out?
Crazy video head.
Really?
Yeah, video game head. Yeah.
What were your were you a League of Legends? Is that like
I was doing
niche?
that a little bit. Yeah.
Are you serious? I was just saying shit.
I was doing Stardew Valley. I was so addicted to that.
Oh wow. Maybe you're
like
gonna
Animal Crossing.
I just bought Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was on a trip and I'm
Mario
like,
Kart.
oh fuck, now I'm back and it's like.
Yeah.
And I want to keep playing. I had to stop myself when I was waiting for you. Like, look, it's right there.
Yeah. I gave up all of that.
Yeah, no, that is
it's a time suck.
It
and like
is.
even though I gave all of that up, and like I don't watch much TV either, but it's like the phone. The phone is such like a big distraction, and even that I start to turn my phone into grayscale. So it's like so disgusting to look at. I don't even want to be on it.
That's a life hack.
And then it's like everything in life is just so vibrant, and like
I am gonna steal that shit. You guys, anybody that posts their art, it's gonna be black and white on my screen. That's cool.
I'll turn it off sometimes if I need to.
Yeah.
But
no, that's brilliant. I mean, I'm just basically going to pick your brain because as a 44-year-old man who's been at it for a while, sometimes you lose a little steam, you know, and you're like, and then you're also like, I think as you get older, the pressure to like make an adult living gets tougher and tougher. And the like going for stuff that's not art related and like will actually feed you and get you a pension kind of stuff starts to prop its head up.
Right.
But no, I mean, I think I'm also kind of kidding. I'm not that broke. I'm doing okay. But yeah, no, I definitely understand that. But was there a moment that you were just like, oh shit, like I'm an artist? Like, was there a moment where you decided that? Because that one was hard for me, and it can be hard for people.
Yeah. I feel like I've always been an artist in some ways, but
when did you acknowledge it?
I never knew I could actually be an artist.
Yeah.
I think I acknowledged it once I was in like Cal State Long Beach.
Okay,
like,
that was when it kicked in.
I just feel like if I'm like going all in, I'm like all in.
Yeah.
Also, there was a moment like a few months before I graduated, I got into a pretty big residency here in downtown LA called Quinn Emanuel. They have a pretty good stipend grant and provides you with a studio. And at the time I was married for 5 years with my high school sweetheart. We were together for 11 years. We were married for 5. And during that time,
you're like older than me and you're younger than me. Jesus, fuck.
But during that time, I was like, oh, I'm an artist. I'm making a lot of money through my art. People are valuing what I'm putting out there. And I was just like, this marriage, like, because at some point I was spending like 16 hours in the studio, right? And he was getting jealous and he was like, why are you there all the time? And I'm like, this thing really matters to me. And when I chose to go down this path instead of trying to fix it with this person that I really love, like, I'm like, my love for art and making things is greater than this.
Wow.
And so I guess that's a really difficult thing that I had to come to terms with.
Yeah.
And that was in some ways for me like choosing to be an artist.
Wow.
Like, and that's like regardless of what anyone else thinks.
No, and that's a lot of pressure on to put on an art practice to begin with, right?
Right. Yeah. Especially for someone who hasn't even graduated yet.
Yeah. And I would also say that it's not the first time art ruined a relationship.
Yeah.
You're part of a long tradition, young lady. That's crazy. Yeah. So 5 years married. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry for him, but he was never going to win that. If you're an artist, there's just no,
Yeah, exactly.
Would it have worked if he chilled?
I mean,
you know what? We don't even have to talk about your marriage. That was just a curiosity. Yeah. Was that I guess the question is, you don't have to tell us what else, but was that the main thing that led to the breakup?
That was the main thing.
That's a pretty big thing.
Yeah. If you're impeding on like the things that I want to achieve in life, I think that's a big deal.
No, it's a huge deal. Yeah.
So
especially when
that means we just don't align. And like I was growing a separate way, and like,
which happens with high school sweethearts, right?
Totally.
Wow. 11 years. I think the longest I've ever dated somebody is 5, but I have other issues. That's interesting though. I mean, so are you at liberty to tell us who you're assisting, like how that process is going? Are you? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like, cause you were just in Aspen, I think.
I was in Aspen.
So you're not like assisting some broke artist.
Aspen is a crazy city. It has a population of 6,600, and there's like 125 billionaires that live there. And like several more millionaires.
How do they talk to you?
The people,
the billionaires. Like
I don't think. I never know if I'm like interacting with one.
Okay, like, so they just act like normal people.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, it's just
you don't see the lizard skin.
Just take off the mask. No, but it's a weird place.
Yeah, I bet.
I don't know why they're all attracted to that place.
They just want to be around. That's one of the things that I've always thought about, because I used to work in Manhattan Beach as a club soccer coach, and I was just like, it was a rude awakening, and I was like, God damn it, it would suck to be rich, and then these have to be your social circle, right? Because these are your class peers, right? Yeah. It's weird to be a billionaire hanging out with broke artists, like that would not vibe. But
interestingly enough, though, the galleries that I went to in Aspen, they're pretty bad. Like it's mostly like second market stuff. Just like the stuff we all have seen already, all this shiny stuff that I was talking about earlier, similar stuff. And I think there's like a market there that's untapped for people that.
But it's a market for like resale market, right? Essentially.
I'm hoping that we could change it, because there's so many artists out here that could use it more than these people that are dead market stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But the artist that I was assisting, he is a local, and his family has lived there all their life. They're like business, like not like working class, but like pretty humble. He's not like some billionaire. Is what I'm trying to say.
He's not a doctor who's retired.
Yeah, exactly.
And is now painting.
I met him when he was helping his grandma here in LA, because his grandpa was a screenwriter. So like their roots are also here in LA. And he was, painting out of his grandma's garage in Santa Monica. And he, she passed away, and he moved back to Aspen. He got into a really gnarly injury where his knee was fractured, his thumb was broken, and then he had a deadline in like the next month.
Wow.
And it was like for a restaurant. There was like a pretty big design dealer that came to him and said, "Hey, we need some paintings," and he was like, "Okay."
And he limped away back to his studio.
And like he couldn't like build any frames, he couldn't like do any of that, and so he just like asked me, because like we've known each other for a while. I interviewed him for a website I have, like where I do like blogs. And
that's right, you do have a blog website. Let's talk about that in a second, but I mean, I do want to get into that. He was
one of the first people that I interviewed
that you interviewed. And, I mean, I know someone you could interview.
Yeah.
I need the press. Well, first of all, it's interesting because I just kind of assumed that you were working for like, you were part of like a studio for an artist, you know, like how artists, like basically Tita kind of talked about it, how they want her to have assistants to meet the demand for her work, right?
Sure.
I thought that was more what it was, but it's,
I mean, that's a similar thing with what's happening, right? There was a demand for his work. He couldn't do it.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm ghost painting for him, you know.
Ghost painting. Ghost painter. I've never even heard that used, but I like that. So then tell me a little bit about the blog and stuff. And then I do want to get into some of the artwork and what you're actually working, because you were doing figurative stuff. And then you did a residency at Blue Roof. But you from the sense that I get from you is that you're gunning for it. You're not trying to just do residencies and then show at artist run spaces. You kind of after, like, I mean, I'm not going to put that on you. After meeting Tita, I also want to do it. Not that because meeting Tita made me think like, damn, this shit is easy. I was like, oh, wait, there's a way to do it. You know, is that? I
think there's so many ways to do it.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's the thing. And when I was in community college, I was applying to be an artist assistant for Njideka Akunyili Crosby.
Okay.
And she's this pretty big Nigerian American artist. She graduated from Yale, and she like is represented by David Kordansky.
Okay.
Or like someone, what's those like?
Zwerner?
Zwerner, yes.
Okay, that's
David
bigger.
Zwerner, yes. She was represented by them. And I came to this interview, and I was like, wow, like, I was like, I don't even, in my head, I'm like, I don't even care about this like job. I would just want to pick her brain. So I was just like, and like, I can't even believe that I was standing in front of her. I thought I was just going to be talking to her assistant the entire time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. And I was like, what do I do to be where you are? Like, that's all I was like, that's all I did during that interview. I was just like picking her brain the entire time. I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I get to here?
Yeah.
And she's like, just do a bunch of residencies.
Really? Residencies is the hot tip. I didn't know that.
That's kind of like what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Up to this point. But I feel like at some point you need to like pivot or like find a different way. Cause I feel like for her, like she went to Yale, like she like did like a specific route and then did residencies. And I don't, you know, like,
and then what?
Everyone's path is different.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
yeah, but not everybody's path ends at Zwerner.
Exactly. I just feel like for me personally, like I did start off pretty strong with just specifically, let's do residencies only and let's do grants only. And like only working with nonprofits and things like that, nonprofit galleries. And that served me like pretty well so far. And I feel like there's always been this like apprehension towards commercial galleries just because of all the horror stories I've heard from other artists. Like,
tell me, what's the worst one?
Like there was this gallery that didn't pay their artist.
Oh yeah, that's an old one. Yeah,
that's like a normal thing.
Yeah.
But then like later on, it's like this artist was trying to ask for their money, but then they were showing their friend, and so they would be tapping into their friend's sales to give to this artist. And I'm just like, I don't. Yeah, they had to like delay asking for their money. You know, It's just like, yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot. There's a lot out there. And so I always thought like, well, maybe I just like will never do that, you know, and just like go this academic like institutional route. But I think it's fair to like weigh in your other options too, because if you're trying to make money as an artist, you have to think about it as a business too. And like,
I mean, it's in the name, not profit.
Just like actually sell your work. It's just like, it's nice because like the grants and residencies, like you get paid.
They sustain you. You
get a bunch of money and then you keep your art. Like that's the thing. Like, but then now you have all this art. Like, what are you going to do with it? Right. It's like, sure, you can sell it, but then like you'd have to tap into another realm.
Yeah. You can't, if you want to get rid of some work, you have to do both essentially. Yeah. But I think that like, I don't know how nonprofit like big museums are, right? But I think that a lot of these successful, like I think one of the lamentations that I've heard artists say before is that you have Zwerner is showing the same stuff as the Met is showing the same, you know, and so I don't know if the Met is nonprofit, but it's certainly it's
an
not
institution.
Yeah, it's an institution. It's not. I don't know. Actually, I comment down below if you know if it's nonprofit or if it's just an institution. But it is interesting that like I think that they kind of come hand in hand when you hit a certain level, right? Like I mean, but I feel like you might know more than me.
I mean, it makes sense. Like if Injadeka is working with David Zorner, and also showing at museums and things, like there has to, you're doing a lot. You're doing like a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
Not just one like linear thing. And I think I just had to learn that through experience, you know, and actually like living it.
Do you feel like the last 2 years have been like the most fruitful in terms of learning since you graduated?
I feel like I learned a lot of life skills and just like existing as an artist.
How's that been?
And I think that's really important too.
How has that been?
It's interesting, you know, like in the beginning I was like working, because after I graduated I went back to working and I got that divorce, right? So I was like, oh, I need to support myself financially. And I'm like, and I thought after that big residency, I was like, oh, I'm just going to sell paintings. Like, easy, you know, freaking, I made all this money. I could just keep making it. And that's just like not the reality of it, right? So I'm like trying to support myself, which is really difficult. If anyone has gone through a divorce, like it's really hard. You're like uprooted and like your entire life has changed. We officialized it in January of 2023.
Oh, shit. You're like a gay divorcee.
But yeah, it was really difficult because I was like used to like relying on this person for a long time. But when we divorced, I worked 2 accounting jobs, like one full-time and one part-time. And I would paint at night. So I would just like work. It was just like work and paint and that's it. And like just like nothing else.
Yeah.
you know? And like, sure, like,
sounds like heaven, but not probably a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah. But and after a while I just got burned out. Yeah. Of like, I mean, that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So for a while I like just didn't work for like 5 months.
Like
I just like painted.
Really nice.
But like that was really hard too, because then I was just like scraping by, and I'm just like, and I also feel like when you have like not a lot of time to paint, you like cherish that even more. And that is valuable. Like my painting time is really valuable because I only have like this much time to paint, and I'm like working the rest of the time.
Are you still working as an accountant?
I stopped working as an accountant, and I was doing closet design for a while.
Okay.
So I'd go into people's houses and design their walk-in closets.
Wow.
You know, and I feel like that was nice too, to like meet potential clients maybe who would
potential
like maybe
customers.
Buy art, but like not really, like because they're like there for a closet. I don't know. But and then after that, like I got a job as a medical assistant. So now I'm working as a medical assistant. I wear scrubs. It all comes full circle, you know. I'm now a nurse. Like,
you can't get away from your stereotype, man. It's just on you.
I hate it so much. I hate wearing those scrubs. Really? I'm like, I'm not a freaking nurse. I'm an artist.
Yeah. Can you doodle on them?
But like, yeah, it's fine. Like it's part-time, it sustains me, and I get to have a lot of time to paint still.
That's awesome.
It's just interesting to like have to do all of this. And I feel like no one even cares, right? It's like, who cares how you're like doing it? You just have to do it. Right?
I don't know.
People only get to see like you were saying, like, oh, you're like working hard, and like that's like the surface. That's like the 5% of it.
But I assumed you made money somehow. I didn't, you know. I mean, I come from a upper middle class family too, and I mean, unless yours is higher than that, I don't mean to presume. I mean,
like, it's just when we moved here, we had nothing.
Yeah. No, that will do that too. Yeah. Changing countries will make that happen. And also, I mean, you say that you came from a well-off family. It sounds more like comparatively, right? Because your mom was here working and sending money back. Right. That's not by any stretch of the imagination doing well, right? Like Americans don't even have a concept of having to go to another country to send money back, you know? Whereas like, I don't know. I just kind of, you like when you're Latino, you know, a lot of people like whose families are like that, you know. Cubans not so much, because Cubans send money to the island, but it's not like it's not like they're going back, you know. Yeah, but I don't know. It's just interesting, sort of these like cultural things that people take for granted, and then you know, like you were like, oh yeah, we came from good money. I'm like listening to you, I'm like, okay, for a Filipino family,
for a third world country,
you were like, sitting on top.
Yeah, I wasn't like walking around without slippers.
Oh really? Oh okay,
you know, like,
yeah, like that,
yeah. It's...
But okay, so then I like we're going, and it's already like 50 minutes in. So I want to give you a chance to talk about a little bit about your work, and then you wanted to talk a little bit about technology and social media. There's no time limit on this. I'm just letting you know where we are. Okay. That's why I'm pivoting.
Sure.
But tell me, like, what are you making? Like, what is your painting, for lack of a better word, about?
I feel like my work has evolved a lot since I started painting. And I only really started painting when I went to school. Okay. So not so long ago, maybe in 2017, 2018.
You weren't painting before?
Mostly drawing. Before, yeah. Painting, like...
That just makes you legit. Because people that paint first can't draw. And I've seen your drawings, you can draw.
The foundations thing again.
No, and also like, dude, painting is cheating.
Yeah. So true.
As in terms of like drawing skills, if you have good drawing skills, I will be much more impressed than if you can paint and you can't draw.
Yeah.
You know, like that. That is like, because you make decisions before you make marks. That's basically the difference between drawing and painting. You know, painting, you can just like fudge it and like, you know, but with drawing, with drawings, you've made the mark. Everything else has to relate to that mark.
And even if you erase it, it's still there.
Yeah. Like... No, I don't erase.
Yeah, you can't.
I got into a while. I can't do it anymore, but I would draw plein air with pen. And it's just for that process of like making the decision before I make the mark, and be like, is this the right line?
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead. What are you painting? What do you?
Oh, I just feel like my work has evolved a lot since I started. At first I was painting a lot of just figure paintings, like traditional, just you're sitting for me for a few hours and I'm just gonna paint that. And it moved to somewhere where I wanted to talk about something more specific than just like the person I'm looking at or this moment that we have. And I just felt so affected by the fact that we're so obsessed with our phones. Yeah. Or like, social media in general, and how that's affecting us psychologically maybe. And like just like questioning the direction we're headed towards, and maybe how that's affecting the new generation. And so I was reading a lot of books like The Coddling of the American Mind. Okay.
Who wrote that?
Sam something.
I shouldn't have asked.
I forget.
Go ahead.
But it's a good book. They talk about like how the new generation, because they're not outside and like learning things and having more adversities, their mind is more coddled. And so they have a lot more entitlement. They feel like what they want, they should just get. Yeah. And that's just like not the reality of the world. And so I just like books like that just kind of like changed my perspective and kind of like make me think about like what's happening.
Does the book address the fact that they're all little snitches? That's my favorite thing to say about Gen Z. It never bombs. Yeah. I was at the climbing gym the other day and a bunch of strangers overheard me saying that. And they were just fucking laughing. Like unashamed that they were eavesdropping. They were just like, nah, that shit's funny. But no, it is a crazy thing. I think about that stuff a lot. I'm a little bit farther removed from that generation. So for me, it looks like, I mean, I guess Gen Z is like, if you had kids, they would be Gen Z, right? Like, whereas if I had kids, it would probably still be Gen Z, I think, right? I mean, maybe if I was younger, they would be millennial.
Yeah.
But
but I mean, like, because I grew up, like, there was a time when there wasn't technology, or it was very minimal. Like, we had the family computer or something, or we still had landline. And, you know, I saw it gradually come into our lives, and we slowly became so dependent on this thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like wondering, like, yeah, I was just questioning all these things. And I think since I decided that that's the thing that I've been pursuing and questioning with my art, is like, how is this affecting us? How are we seeing the world now? And like, how are we treating our images? Because I feel like we're just like consuming so much and just like forgetting it. Like nothing even matters anymore. Or like, sure, we save a lot. Like we feel like we're saving things a lot. But it's like, how much of it is actually important? Because I think back then it's like we had like 5 photos or like just like film photos that we would keep, and it's like our family heirloom. Yeah. And like, that's not the reality anymore. I don't know.
No, and I think that like the tactile experience of photographs has really changed, right? Because now every photograph that you're looking at your phone feels like your phone. Right. Right. So you're not actually worried about bending a corner and desecrating the image or ripping a photograph. How powerful is that, right? Like you can't really, like the image has sort of lost some of its power, but then it's also gained it, because I think when I was younger, media literacy, specifically understanding images and what they are and how we interact with them, was a lot easier because they were in magazines, they were objects. Whereas like now, it's the lines between what is an image that's generated and
what is real and what is fake. It's all like blurred now. It's all a gray area. But also, so I'm just, with my art, I feel like I'm kind of just exploring what my relationship with images is like now. And for a while I was also doing a lot of like porn imagery, because I feel like that's also a big deal in the technology world, like how we interact with that. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are like addicted to that now. And then also just like the anxiety that comes with being like constantly online. Yeah. Like, and how people are viewing you, all the masks that you put on. What does it mean for your identity? All those things. I feel like that's all like.
And what parts of your identity get celebrated versus what is, you know, like.
What is hidden? What is true to you? Like you never show your true self online. And like, what does that even mean, your true self? Like, you know, like I feel like there's just so many things to like dive deep in that.
No, concept. It's definitely fertile. Yeah. And I think that it's you know, I think that it's just one of those things that it's really crazy. So, there used to be a rule, like there was an Operation Mockingbird. All right, I'm trying to as quickly go through the CIA bullshit, but there was an Operation Mockingbird, and then they made an effort where, when that I think got exposed, that you couldn't propagandize Americans, like the CIA could not do operations here. But during the Obama presidency, it was like, nah, you can do it now. So that element of like reality distortion, there's like it used to just be that you had you know, advertising agencies, kind of like in Italy they call ads, they call them propaganda. It's not like, you know, like there's no separate word for commercials. It, like when you see a commercial, it'll say propaganda just to identify it as that, right? So to me, it's interesting because we're in a space where we are all propagandists, like you were saying. We're all putting forth this image. I am very guilty of that. I'm like, you know, you see me and I'm a different person here, and I don't say everything that I think that might hurt people's feelings. And I think that on top of that, so that you've got that layer.
Oh my gosh. What a dystopian thing to think that we're all propaganda.
Yeah, we're all propagandizing the quality of our lives. Yeah. And so, but I think that 2 things are happening. I think that we're both internalizing that, like that process. But then I also think that there is a media literacy that comes with that, right? Because now I think that that's where a lot of mistrust comes from, because everybody is doing it. We can spot it when other people are doing it, which I think is a really interesting element to the whole thing. But yeah, like I think that like I've never seen people more skeptical by government ops. You know, like when they marched out Mangione. And it looked like fucking Batman. Like, he looked like a Batman villain, and everyone was like, you know. So it is an interesting topic of it's fertile ground, right? Because there are so many elements. We're getting bombarded with images, but now we're also armed and we're bombarding with images. And then but then like if we say something that may be too true or maybe a threat to certain narratives, that's when the censorship comes in and all of that, right? And it's just a really interesting time. I think that especially someone your age, especially where you are situated in your generation, is going to be interesting to see where that goes.
It's also interesting to see how culture is spreading and how, like, because back in the day, culture has always been like an isolated thing within what's close to you, and now everything has been globalized. Right? Now that we have access to the entire world, whatever, like we
see where the bombs land.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that could be an interesting thing to see too. Like, how is culture going to evolve, and how are we going to be homogenized? Yeah. In that way.
I've noticed that there is a push from a lot of people to be like, I don't know how to say this, so I'm going to take a second to figure it out. But like, people don't trust people anymore to have critical thinking and to be exposed to materials that like people want to control what people have access to because they don't trust them with that. Like almost to the point where things that are true are being censored because they don't think that people can handle that, you know? And it's a very, very strange thing. And we're in this very strange time where like these pragmatists like Elon Musk and the Facebook guy Zuckerberg, who are basically at the helm of these kind of at least the citizen propaganda unit, where like people are spreading misinformation on either side, right? Like it's a really interesting thing, and I kind of tend to maybe I'm naive, but I kind of tend to trust people a little bit in their ability to like. And if they don't, I kind of don't care. Yeah. Like if you fuck up your life because you believe something that's not true, it's like, it's almost like, I think that what's interesting to me about these times is that, you know, like Gen Z or Gen X was very much about apathy, you know, and this like, we live in this consumer culture, apathy about that. Like that's basically why, my understanding why Kurt Cobain killed himself. He was at the center of this cultural thing that he was really kind of artificial and didn't have like the integrity that he felt. I mean, that's my interpretation of what happened there. But I think that right now, everybody is really, it's really cool to care, but it's weird that everybody cares about shaming people. Like we've gone from this place where like shaming someone for being fat and shaming someone for being queer or shaming someone for being promiscuous were bad things. But now it's like shame is kind of a weapon of the oppressed and the marginalized, which is a really, really weird thing because there's something conformist to that, you know, like where people trust the fucking CIA and the FBI. Like Gen Z is like, they're such good kids.
It's so interesting that you bring up the idea of trust and like the truth. Yeah. And I feel like now more than ever, like what you believe is the truth.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
for sure.
Because even before that, like, you know, people believe in a lot of like stories, like religion is a thing, or just like superstition. Yeah. And like just like a bunch of things. And like if you believe it's true, then it's true to you, right? And so it's like,
that's a very postmodern approach to it, but it there's validity to it for sure.
Yeah, I don't know, because like even now it's just like so confusing. Like who even knows anymore? Like what is fact? What is fact?
Yeah. Or the craziest thing is when you say something that is true and people look at you like you're crazy. Yeah. But I think that is like my experience and my understanding of how people of my generation are experiencing going like teaching at schools is very much that like, I mean, you're competing with phones that provide you stuff at the length of your attention span as it gets shorter. Right. And I can't imagine competing with that, you know, as like a professor. That sounds insane. And then like you say something that the little machine tells you is wrong. Right. And like people don't even examine that. They're just like, no, this thing told me that what you said is wrong. So I'm going to come after you. You know, that's why I mean that they're snitches, right? Like it's almost like, oh, like Hitler Youth kind of. Yeah. You know, like everybody's so radicalized, but not anti-state. Oh my gosh. Not anti-institution. Yeah. Right.
It's anti each other.
Anti each other. Yeah. And I don't know. I find that very interesting because if you could go back 10 years, like everybody was like, fuck the upper class, fuck the 99. No, we are the 99%. And somehow that has just flipped on its head. Right. Yeah. You know, so it's a really interesting.
It's weird.
Yeah. And I think that there is something charming about finding your people through that process of being like, okay, this person doesn't seem absolutely crazy. Or like, but then at the same time, I'm kind of like, there's people and I just have to have empathy for the fact that they believe things that are crazy, you know, like it's almost like not their fault. Like it almost makes, I have more sympathy for people, but you know, this idea of misinformation is hilarious because I don't know if you may be too young to remember this, but Richard Gere, do you know where I'm going with this?
No.
Okay. When I was young, there was this huge fucking rumor of him and gerbils and like sexual play with gerbils and sticking them in orifices. And that was like an accepted fact about this fucking guy. And I feel so bad for him in retrospect. Yeah. And there was a bunch of shit like that just spread you know, like word of mouth. So this idea that misinformation is like, and I know that that's like innocuous, right?
Yeah.
But like this shit has been around forever. It's just at a really accelerated rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
And it's so funny though. It's like, it like feels good to consume. I don't know. Like,
I know.
It's hard to like go against it, but also like, it's nice. Like, I don't know. Like, well, like you like escape your life. It's like an escapist thing. And like, I don't know.
Half of YouTube is just people tearing down famous people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like there's like so many people that make a living off of calling people out, and that I think that feeds into that. Like there is, and I watch that shit because it's like it's the empty calories. It's like, let me get these carbs, yo. Yeah, you know, it's like so you get to feel smug and smarmy, and you're just like, fuck these people. Yeah. But anyway, no, I'm curious to see where you take this. Any parting thought? Any further thoughts on this? Because I'm noticing that I'm talking more on this.
No, because it's an interesting thing to talk about, and I think everybody can relate. You know, we're all just living it. You know? But I think one of my favorite paintings that I did, it's called Perpetual Epinephrine, and it just sums up like how anxious I feel with like being online. It's just like all these images that are combined. It's like me taking a photo of me eating a sandwich in the freeway. Yeah. And then it's like this person like on Instagram taking a photo of like his shoes on the ground. And it's just like, this is my brain. You know, it's like, it's never just focused on one thing. I'm constantly like just bouncing around. With, like different things. And it's crazy making.
No, for sure.
How can anyone like live like this? But we do, you know.
And we managed to somehow.
So weird.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
It's probably like really unnatural and probably really bad for us to like live this way.
Well, and I think that a lot of that is used to sort of just, like you said, pit us against each other and get us arguing, and then forgetting that, like, you know,
this is it. Like, and it's all happening. Like, it's like a distraction. Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm really excited to see some of this work. I've actually never seen any of your stuff in person. Do you have any shows coming up?
I have a show up right now at Long Beach.
That's not the Blue Roof anymore, no?
No. That got taken down. There's a new resident there now.
Yeah.
I have a group show at Long Beach at the Rod Briggs Gallery, and then I have a show coming up in February with Sasha Cohen at his new space called Sabbatical in Santa Monica. And then I might have a group show this year at the USC Fisher Museum. I'm not sure yet. That one's not confirmed. But yeah, that's
what you got going on.
That's what's happening.
Cool.
the next couple of months. But yeah, I mean, like, I feel like my work has changed though since then. Like, I don't paint multiple images in one painting anymore. I've just like focused in and changed a lot. I like now use a lot of film imagery, like, because I started picking up on film photography, and just like importing that on my phone and screenshotting it into these like little moments, like little vignettes, and like very like zoomed in, only focused on composition. And that's kind of like an anti-digital thing.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's going to be interesting. As like I was telling you before you got here that I'm like learning this stuff called prompt engineering, which is like probably going to be a big career in the future, because I don't know if you fucked with AI. It's really hard to tell it what you want, you know, and like
it's confused.
Yeah, it gets confused. But there's apparently a language that you speak to it with, right? Yeah. So I'm trying to get into that. I think I'm going to start doing live streams where I just, you know, like put in an image and I'm like, make a different version of this and that, and kind of go through the process of that, because I think that that's a really interesting technology. But yeah, you get to thinking about what the point of all of this stuff is, because as somebody who uses it and it's like a really useful tool,
it is.
I also realize that I don't exercise parts of my brain anymore. Like when I've been using it to
Your
write.
memory is all weird. Like
and I don't have to write essays anymore. So why would I?
Yeah.
You know, and then like I'll like be like, that's not how I would write it, but I don't know how to get it into the voice that I want, so I'll just let it pass. You know,
which is great. I feel like there's a lot of good things with technology. And I think when something's new, we tend to be so scared of it, or like you know, villainize it a lot. But I'm more worried about the repercussions that we're not aware of, right? It's like when you like mix pigment all day and then like 50 years later you have cancer because of what you were doing. You know, it's like we don't know what this is doing to us. Yeah. But we're like a huge experiment that we're just going with it and we'll see. Yeah. Right. It's like, well, I
see what it's doing to the Gen Z, and it is concerning.
They're fried. Their brains are fried.
The brain,
all of our brains are fried.
That brain rot, you know. I definitely have it, and yeah, like I need to not get on the empty calories of like. I try to like. I've made an effort to just like watch races or like specific things that I know won't have all this catty shit. Like, but it does feel like I'm just watching entertainment, you know, from the 90s. Like it's a lot of content is just so toxic. And like, and I not that I'm like special for trying to not do that. I mean, I'm definitely just doing puff pieces for artists, you know, like people come on, I'm like, hey, you're great, you know, like I very non-confrontational stuff, but maybe I should. Maybe that would get me more views. I'm like, hey,
start some.
You posted this. Like, what the fuck?
Oh yeah. Well,
Clarisse is not a serious artist. but I, you know, like I say that sincerely. I think that the stuff algorithmically that gets pushed out the most is the stuff that just kind of makes you feel good about hating, you know, and like, you know, that toxic feeling of like, yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, anything that I haven't been able to access because I'm not psychic and don't know what's in your mind that you would want to say?
No,
you sure?
Good. Yeah.
All right. Well, I had a lovely time. You're as charming as you seem online. You're very funny.
You too.
Thank you. I was not expecting a compliment in return. That's very sweet of you. But yeah, anything that we can promote. We talked a little bit about your shows that are coming up already. Your Instagram is
Clarisse.artist.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought I was going to have to spell your last name
no.
from memory.
It's just Clarisse.artist on Instagram. And then, yeah, that's it. If you want a studio visit, hit me up. I'm in downtown.
You're in downtown? And now that I know that, I might do that. I got some shit that I need to finish, but I might, since we're nearby. You live downtown or your studio's downtown?
Both.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I'll hit you up because I'm not doing figurative stuff. So it's always interesting to see what figurative painters have to say. But I definitely want to see some of your stuff because, you know, on Instagram, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, I can't believe that we're wrapping up already. It just doesn't feel like we've been going an hour and 13 minutes.
Yeah.
If you guys enjoyed the conversation, like and subscribe, comment on YouTube and on the episodes where you listen to them audio. We have the early access program for anybody that really feels like they want to help out. All that AI shit costs money. And if you guys have the means and feel inclined to do so, we really appreciate it. Shout out to everybody who's already joined. That's patreon.com/what'smythesis. And I'm really like having a hard time wrapping this up because
over and out. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. It feels rushed. It's like the fastest hour I've had in a while. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's been like it's been since before Christmas that I'm like struggling to end this. But we'll be back next week with another guest and another topic that may or may not be art related. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This was very art related.
Bye, guys.